I woke up that morning with a knot in my stomach, so tight I could barely breathe. Something was off, and I didn't know why. It wasn't the first time in 18 years of marriage I'd felt that familiar dread bubble up, but this time it was different. It was sharper, more insistent, like a warning light flashing in the back of my mind. I glanced at the empty side of the bed, still warmed by David's presence last night, and tried to shake it off. We'd had a great trip so far, or so I thought. Rewind 3 days. I'm Emma, 39, and I've been with David since college. We've been married 18 years, survived our share of bumps, including that painful separation in our early 30s, but rebuilt and found our way back stronger. When we decided to celebrate by flying down to New Orleans for a 2-night reunion concert, one of those bucket list shows from his youth, I was excited. It felt like old times, rediscovering each other over jazz bars and late-night po' boys. The first night, walking into the packed theater, I grabbed David's hand and felt that rush again. This is my partner, my history, my home. But then, in the lobby, I saw her, Lena. She was laughing with a group of friends, tall and bright-eyed, the same woman he'd dated back in college. My heart flipped when David spotted her too. He hesitated, a flicker of recognition in his eyes before weaving us through the crowd. 3-minute intro, polite smiles, and then Lena said, "Nice to see you both, hope you have fun tomorrow." That was that. I watched her fade into the crowd, then turned back to David, who squeezed my hand like he always did, the way he used to. I flew home the next afternoon. Our plan was always that I'd head back early, work deadlines, family commitments, the usual. David stayed on for the second show with his buddy Mike. We have a rule. When one of us travels solo, we check in at night to say we're safe. I texted him around 11, "You alive?" No reply. I tried again at midnight. Nothing. I closed my eyes and told myself he was just caught up in the post-show buzz. He'd message in the morning. He did, at 10 a.m. with a casual, "Hey," ended up on Bourbon Street till dawn with Mike. Wild night. I forced a laugh emoji and said, "Glad you made it back alive. Love ya." But even as I typed that, my gut twisted. Bourbon Street runs until sunrise, I get it. But 3 nights ago, he was home sleeping next to me without fail. Why didn't he think to ping me? Tiny details like that matter when you've built your marriage on trust after nearly falling apart once. Then came yesterday's conversation, which shattered everything. It started innocently enough. I walked into the living room after work, expecting to say hi and catch up about the day. Instead, David sat me down on the couch, eyes serious, voice calm, too calm. "Emma," he said, "I want to talk about something unusual." A chill ran down my spine. I braced for the worst. "How would you feel," he continued, "if we invited someone else into our lives?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" He took a breath. "Her name's Lena. I ran into her at the show. We reconnected, and I was thinking, what if she moved into the guest house? You'd have someone to hang out with, go to concerts and shows, someone fun around. And well," his face turned just a shade red. "Maybe more." I stared at him as if he'd grown a second head. "Are you serious?" He nodded, as calmly as if he were asking if I wanted extra fries with dinner. "I thought you'd like it. I mean, it could be good for us. For you. It's not about me. Well, it is, but only because I thought it'd make you happy." I opened my mouth and closed it. My hands shook. "This isn't me," I managed. "I've never asked for that kind of thing." His shoulders slumped. "I know, but she's different. It started innocent, just catching up. Then last night, after the show, we ended up back at her place. She stayed until dawn." He paused. "Nothing happened, I swear. We just talked, but she brought it up. She wants this." I felt the room tilt. "You both talked about moving her in, without telling me first?" "I thought I was telling you," he said quietly. "I wanted your permission before anything." My voice rose. "Permission? You make it sound like I'm signing a PTO request. You didn't even check in on me after your night out. And now you're telling me you brought this up with her and you?" "Hey," he interrupted gently. "I didn't do anything. I asked you first." I could hear the pleading in his tone, but it did nothing to calm the storm inside me. I thought back to those Bourbon Street texts he forgot to send. I thought about deleted messages I'd found on his phone last week, flirty banter with someone, then gone when I looked again. I remembered how he'd said those were work chats. "Don't lie to me," I said, voice trembling. "I saw the messages you deleted. You guys were talking about plans. You said you had to talk to me first. How long has this been going on?" He looked down, fingers twisting. A couple of weeks? I mean, since the trip. It's not like anything serious. But you're moving her into our home. I shook my head. This isn't about me. This is about you and her. I could feel tears threatening to spill, but anger kept them at bay. I rebuilt my trust in you after you sexted someone years ago. I thought we were past that. My voice cracked. I'm not. This isn't the life I wanted. David stood and crossed to the window, looking out like he could find his answer in the street below. I thought being honest would fix it, he muttered. I let out a bitter laugh. Honest. You hid it the whole time. How is this honesty? I walked past him and grabbed my keys. I need space. Now, here I am, sitting in my car in the driveway, phone in hand, scrolling through our old texts. His sudden, I saw Lena again messages. My excited replies about seeing him happy. My oblivious, can't wait to see you notes. I read the deleted parts I recovered through a backup. Flirty emojis, half-suggested meetups, lines like, I can't stop thinking about you. My chest ached with betrayal. I texted my best friend Sarah just 3 words, need you now. She replied instantly, on my way. In those few minutes before she gets here, I try to catch my breath. I remind myself I'm not overreacting, that gut punch is real. I replay David's words. It was her idea. It's a classic blame shift, and I refuse to accept it. My mind races. What if something did happen? What if this was just the tip of the iceberg? Worse, what if somehow I'd been complicit by letting us drift apart, by not noticing his distance? No, I tell myself firmly. I've always been there for him, through job losses, through my own health scare last year. I've stood by him. He owes me at least the truth. Sarah's car pulls in. I open the door before she even knocks and fling my arms around her. Tell me I'm not crazy? You're not, she says, steering me inside. Start from the top. I want every detail. As I sit down and begin to lay it all out, Lena's name, the Bourbon Street silence, the proposal to invite an ex into our marriage, I feel a strange mixture of relief and dread. Relief because I'm not alone. Dread because I know things are about to get a lot more complicated. But right now, I need to find a way to steady myself, to figure out what I want. Do I stay and fight for the life I thought we built? Or is this the final straw after years of near misses and missteps? I don't know yet, but I'm determined to learn the truth one way or another. And I'm ready to face whatever comes next. I stayed on Sarah's couch late into the night, the TV flickering shadows across the walls while she made me tea and let me rant. At some point, exhaustion caught up and I fell into a fitful sleep, dreams of Lena's face and David's calm apology, warped into a kaleidoscope of half-truths. When I woke, the house was silent. My phone buzzed, a text from David. Can we talk tonight? I stared at it, heart thumping. Talk? After everything, talk again? I shoved the phone face down and slipped out, grabbing my headphones and deciding to walk. The neighborhood was quiet, dew on the grass glittering under the street lamps. I let my playlist shuffle, songs that used to make me think of us cruising down the highway years ago. Now, they sounded hollow. I walked until my legs burned, until I reached the little park where I used to bring our daughter when she was small, except we didn't have a daughter. No kids. That was our choice, a silent agreement we never really revisited. I sat on the empty swing and let the cool metal ground me. My mind circled back to our trip. Halina and I had barely exchanged words, but something about her still lingered in his texts, like a scent he couldn't shake. I remembered when he texted me from Bourbon Street. Wish you were here. Those words stabbed me more than any confession, because even if nothing physical happened with Lena, his heart, his attention, wasn't fully at home. I pulled out my phone and drafted a reply to his, "Can we talk?" Something sharp about walls and distance, but then deleted it. I didn't want to lash out blindly, I wanted clarity. I wanted him to say exactly what he meant, without hedging. When I got back, Sarah was gone. The house smelled faintly of chamomile. I showered, dressed in sweatpants and an old sweatshirt, and paged through our photo albums, digital, in the cloud. But I printed out a few pictures last year when our old printer still worked. There we were at our 10th anniversary, me in a red dress, him grinning like a kid. Below it, a snapshot from our trip to Iceland, frozen waterfalls, our arms wrapped tight around each other's waist. Those were the years I thought would carry us forever. By late afternoon, I felt both heavier and strangely deflated. He hadn't called back. I ate a sandwich in silence, replaying every word from yesterday. It was her idea. I wanted to ask your permission. Nothing happened. Did I believe him? I wanted to, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was rewriting the past to suit his comfort. At 6 o'clock, David's car finally pulled into the driveway. I heard the door slam, footsteps on the porch. My heart clenched. I stood in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, watching him come through the front door, hands in pockets, shoulders hunched the way he does when he feels guilty. He paused when he saw me. "Hey," he said softly. His voice used to be a bomb, now it made my skin crawl. I crossed my arms. "You wanted to talk." He nodded and gestured toward the living room, but I stayed put. He followed, eyes on my face. I'm sorry you found out this way." I scoffed. "Found out?" I folded my arms tighter. "David, I found out because you're terrible at covering your tracks." He flinched. "That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed sharp. "You're the one who suggested inviting an ex you barely reconnected with into our home. Then you hide messages and go silent for a night. And I'm the unfair one?" He pinched the bridge of his nose. "Emma, I screwed up, I know that. But I swear to you, nothing happened. I didn't sleep with her. I was lonely, I guess, I thought." He pressed his palms together. "I thought if I asked you first, it would be okay." I closed my eyes, picturing him yawning on a stranger's couch at dawn, her face inches from his. My chest tightened and my voice came out quieter. "Lonely, you have me. We built this life together." He took a step toward me. "I know. That's why I asked you. I couldn't just sneak her in. I wanted you to agree because I love you, and I thought—" His voice broke. "I thought we were past this, Em. After everything, I thought we had the kind of marriage where we could be honest about wanting something different." My stomach churned. "Different? You mean a third person in our marriage? That's not different. That's a whole other dimension I never signed up for." He looked desperate. "It's not about replacing you. It's about exploring together." He motioned between us as though drawing invisible lines. "We've always been adventurous. We said we'd try new things." I pressed my lips together. Yes, we had said that once years ago, late night flirting about bucket lists, but nothing like this. We said we'd travel the world, learn new languages, maybe take dance classes. Not this. Not open the door for your ex. He sank onto the couch. "I just thought it'd be fun, for both of us." "For you?" I muttered. He looked up, hurt. "I wanted to share it with you." I shook my head. "If you wanted to share, you wouldn't have gone silent from me in New Orleans. You wouldn't have deleted your messages. You wouldn't have hidden laughter in texts you knew I'd find suspicious." He closed his eyes, a pained expression crossing his face. He exhaled slowly. "I was stupid. I was selfish." Silence stretched. I glanced at my watch, dinner time, but I hadn't been hungry since yesterday. My mind reeled. If he'd messed up once, maybe he'd do it again. Trust isn't a switch you flip back on. It's a fragile thing you rebuild with every honest word. Could I believe him now? "Why Lena?" I asked quietly. "Why her, of all people?" He swallowed. She made me feel alive. Like when we first started dating. I remember that feeling, like the world was new. We laughed about nothing. I missed that. I felt tears prick the corner of my eyes. We did laugh. We did feel alive. I waved a hand around our living room, filled with travel souvenirs and framed photos. "We just forgot sometimes." He reached for my hand, but I pulled back. "So you want to invite her to remind us?" I said, voice shaking. "To remind you of us." He looked at his shoes. "I thought if we shared that, it might bring back. It might make things exciting." Exciting? I thought of the late nights I'd sat alone, waiting for his text. I thought of the fatigue of rebuilding trust once and the fear of doing it again. "Excitement isn't worth the foundation of our marriage being bulldozed, David." He closed his eyes. "I know." That answer wasn't enough. I turned away, wrapping my arms around myself. On the mantel, our wedding photo stared back. Two beaming 20-somethings, hopeful as ever. I reached out and touched the frame, as if willing that memory to speak sense into the present. David came up behind me, quiet as a shadow. "I don't know how to fix this," he said. I exhaled, not looking at him. "I don't either, but I need time." My throat tightened. "I need to decide if I can ever see you the same way again." His voice came softer, almost a whisper. "Take all the time you need." That night, I lay awake, the ceiling fans slicing circles of light and dark across the walls. I thought about our first years together, how we stayed up late playing cards in the tiny apartment he could barely afford, how we whispered secrets on our balcony about our dreams. I thought of our separation when I moved out for 3 months, and we both thought it was over. but then found each other again in therapists' offices and long phone calls. We patched the tears, but the scars remained. Now, I wondered if those scars would ever fully heal. Sunday morning came with rain drumming on the roof, and I stayed in bed, listening. David didn't come in. He'd stayed at his friend Mike's house, he said. I checked my phone. No calls, no texts, just silence. By noon, I found myself at the neighborhood bookstore, wandering aisles of novels I'd never read. I picked up a collection of essays on love, not a how-to guide, but real stories from people who'd survived infidelity, loss, reinvention. I flipped through pages, reading passages about betrayal's aftermath, about forgiveness, about choosing oneself. One line caught me. To forgive is not to forget. It is to trust again, or to choose freedom, freedom. It thudded in my chest. Was my next step to forgive and rebuild, or to free myself from this shifting ground? I closed the book and tucked it under my arm, decision unmade, but my resolve firming. Later, at home, I found an email from Lena. She'd emailed my work address. A long, apologetic note saying she didn't mean to cause harm, that she and David had history and old feelings resurfaced, but that she never wanted to break up our family. She offered to back off entirely if I asked. My fingers hovered over the delete key. Part of me wanted to reply, to tell her the truth, that marriage wasn't a playground for nostalgia. But I didn't. I deleted her email. No part of me wanted to invite her drama deeper. In the living room, I sat on the couch and opened my journal, the one I'd neglected since the stress of last year's health scare. I wrote the date at the top and poured out every fear, every question. Was I overreacting? Was I punishing him unfairly? Could I survive another breach of trust? Could our marriage survive? When the ink dried, I felt lighter. I'd named the weight on my chest. Maybe that was a start. That evening, David texted. Dinner? I stared at the message I typed, not tonight, and hit send. Then I locked my phone and stepped outside, letting the cool spring air wash over me. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, telling myself, one day at a time, because right now, that's all I can do. I spent the next morning perched on the edge of my bed, phone buzzing next to me, but I ignored it. The silence felt safer than any answer David might give. Instead, I opened my laptop and began drafting a list, questions I needed answered before I could even think about meeting him halfway again. Did anything actually happen that night? Why didn't you check in? How many times have you and Lena talked since the trip? Why did you delete your messages? Writing them down made them less overwhelming. Around midday, I grabbed my umbrella and walked to the cafe where Sarah works on weekends. I ordered a latte, extra shot, and sat at our usual table by the window. Sarah slid into the seat opposite me, dark circles under her eyes from working an early shift. Still no word? She asked, voice low. No, I said. Silence? I pushed my list across the table. I'm thinking of sending these to him, get it all in writing, then I'll know where I stand. She scanned the questions. I like it direct, she shrugged. He can't dodge bullet points, I nodded, but my stomach knotted. I didn't want to sound accusatory, I just needed clarity. Sarah leaned forward. Promise me you'll let him answer before you assume the worst. You deserve the truth, but you also deserve his side. I took a sip of my latte, letting the warmth spread. Yeah, you're right. I folded the paper. I'll send it tonight. Later that afternoon, I was back home when my email pinged. It was from David's subject, my answers. My heart pounded as I clicked it open. Did anything actually happen that night? Nothing physical. We talked until dawn, I swear. Why didn't you check in? My phone died. I was too embarrassed to say so. Figured I'd message in the morning. How many times have you and Lena talked since the trip? A handful of texts, mostly catching up, planning how to help her move. Why did you delete your messages? Because they got flirty, and I knew you'd freak. I regret it. I closed the email and stared at the wall. On paper, his answers sounded plausible. My phone dying, innocent texts, but then planning how to help her move into our home. I grabbed my pen and scrawled why across the printout, then stuck it on the fridge where I couldn't miss it. That evening, Sarah came over again, armed with a frozen pizza and her unwavering support. We sat in the dim living room, cold pizza slice in hand, replaying his email. Do you believe him? She asked. I chewed thoughtfully. Part of me does. He's never lied about big stuff before, only little things. But another part, I trailed off. Deleting the messages isn't a little thing, Sarah nodded. Trust is in the details, Em, and those little things pile up. She gestured to my printout. Send a reply. I need to talk face to face. No more writing. Can we meet tomorrow morning at the park? I tapped out a quick reply on my phone. Let's talk in person. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., Willow Park. Please be honest. Hit send. Immediately, my heart lurched. What if he didn't show? I barely slept that night, tossing and turning between hope and dread. Morning came gray and drizzly. I dressed in jeans and a hoodie, grabbed an umbrella, and left the house 15 minutes early. At the park, I sat on a bench overlooking the pond, ripples tracing circles as raindrops fell. I stared at my watch, 8:55. 8:57. Rain thickened. At 9:02, I saw him. Umbrella in hand, cane in the offhand, our dog Winston's leash, though Winston wasn't there. The sight of him walking alone jolted something in me, loss, anger, and still, love. He saw me and hesitated, then closed the distance in a few quick steps. Thanks for coming, he said, voice small. I patted the bench beside me. You're late. My voice was sharper than I intended. He slid in, eyes down. I'm sorry. I wanted to be here by 9. I folded my arms. Your answers were on email. I need more than typed words. He nodded, looking up at the low clouds. I get that. I breathed in the damp air. So, tell me, why did you delete the messages? He took a shaky breath. Because I was ashamed. I was starting to feel different around her, and I knew you'd hate it. So I deleted. He paused. I didn't want to lose you. I looked at him, gauging. Did you think inviting her in would fix things? Or break them? He closed his eyes. Honestly, both. I thought if I could merge the past and present, maybe what we had would feel new again. But I see now I just made a mess. A tear slipped down my cheek. A big mess. He reached for my hand tentatively. I'm sorry, I want to rebuild with honesty, slow, no more secrets. I pulled my hand back. Actions, not promises. He nodded, eyes glistening. I know, I'll prove it. We sat, rain pattering around us, the pond's ripples echoing the ache in my chest. I didn't know if I could trust him again, but I also didn't want to give up on 18 years in an instant. Promise me no more ghosts, I said quietly. No deleted texts, no silent nights. I promise, he said, voice cracking. No ghosts. I looked at him, at the man who'd been my best friend, my partner, the father we never had children with but loved all the same. The park bench felt cold beneath me, but something tender stirred inside, the start of forgiveness, or at least the will to try. I need time, I whispered, but I'll give you a chance to earn it. He nodded, relief flooding his features. Thank you. We sat in that drizzle, two flawed people holding onto each other and the memory of better days, trying to find a way back. And in that quiet moment, no words left unsaid, no emails unread, I realized the hardest part was just beginning. That evening, we drove home in near silence. The wipers slapped rhythmically against the windshield, and I kept my eyes fixed on the road ahead, as if that would settle the swirl in my head. David glanced over at me once, then looked back toward the dark fields outside. When we pulled into the driveway, neither of us spoke. We just let the engine die with an abrupt click. I stepped out first, the damp air hitting my face. He got out behind me and closed my door gently. I led the way inside, boots squelched on the welcome mat. Our living room felt different now, too familiar, almost threatening in its normalcy. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door and turned to him. Thank you for coming, I said quietly. He gave me a small nod. Thank you for letting me try, I swallowed. Let's start with tomorrow, therapy. I meant individual therapy for me. I needed an unbiased space to untangle my feelings, but I also wanted couples sessions to begin soon. I've already looked up 2 counselors. I'd made calls earlier that day, mustering more energy than I felt I had, David's face lit with gratitude. I'll go with you or wait in the car, whatever you need. Both, I paused. I want you at my side for the couples sessions, but I need to go alone first for my own head. He nodded, his eyes dark with relief. I walked past him into the kitchen and started filling the kettle for tea. He followed, standing behind me, but not touching. I thought about the kettle's whistle, that shrill promise of warmth, and let myself believe in small comforts for a moment. Later, after dinner, an awkward pasta dish we both barely tasted. I opened my laptop and found the email confirmations for my solo therapy appointment. May 21st, next Wednesday, 8 in the evening. I printed the confirmation and placed it on the kitchen table. Then I opened my calendar app and penciled in our first couples session for the following Wednesday. David hovered behind me. "Looks good," he said softly. I closed the laptop and stood. "I'll send the counselor a quick email to confirm, but it's firm." He exhaled, and I felt the tension between us loosen by a fraction. "Thank you," he repeated. "Don't thank me yet." I looked at him. "Prove me you can stick to honesty for a month, no secrets." I crossed my arms. He met my gaze. "Okay." Over the next week, we fell into a cautious routine. Every evening, we sat on the couch, separate mugs of tea in hand, and talked for 10 minutes about our days. No phones. No distractions. If David left the house, he texted the moment he arrived and again when he headed home. He even shared location, an overly transparent step, but one that slowly eased my anxiety. Monday night, he caught me staring at my phone as it buzzed with his "I'm home" text at precisely 10:03 p.m. I slipped it into my pocket and said, "I'm proud of you." He smiled, relief soft in his eyes. "I'm proud of me too." Tuesday afternoon, I slept through my alarm and woke to find 3 messages from him. "Couldn't reach you, everything okay? Let me know if you need anything. Love you." I texted back, "I'm fine. Thanks." It felt surreal to realize someone was actually checking in. But the hardest part came Thursday morning when I opened my email to see a message from Lena. The subject line read simply, "I'm sorry." My heart pounded and I fought the urge to open it. Instead, I deleted it without reading. It felt like he'd promised to banish her from our lives, and I trusted he'd at least respect that boundary. That night, before bed, I asked him, "Did you talk to her?" He blinked. "I deleted her contact. Haven't messaged or answered if she texts." He looked tired, like he'd wrestled with himself all day. It was hard, but I meant what I said at the park. I nodded, trying to reconcile my lingering distrust with the earnestness in his voice. "Thank you." By Friday, the tension in the house had eased. I caught myself smiling at his silly jokes again, and he brushed my hair from my face as I read in bed. But underneath it all, I carried the weight of the upcoming therapy session. What would the counselor say? Would she look at me and tell me to leave or to stay? I didn't know which outcome terrified me more. Saturday morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains. My phone was buzzing, work emails, family check-ins. But the first notification was from David. "Coffee on the porch." I swung my legs out of bed and dropped my feet onto the rug. Moments later, I walked into the kitchen to find him humming, a French press brewing on the counter. He handed me a steaming mug. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," I replied, and for the first time in days, meant it without reservation. We carried our coffee onto the back porch and sat side by side on the swing. The air was crisp, birds sang, and for a while, we just savored the quiet. Then I turned to him. "I need to tell you something." He set his mug down. "Anything?" I took a breath. "I've been thinking about what you said at the park, that you missed feeling alive." He nodded, watching me. "I get it. I miss that too, not with Lena, but with you." I reached for his hand. "I want to feel that spark again, but we've got to rebuild slowly. No shortcuts, no easy fixes." I squeezed his hand, and he returned the pressure. He smiled, a little shaky. "Slow is good," I grinned back. "Slow and steady." That afternoon, I sat in the counselor's cozy office for my solo session. She had kind eyes and a stack of notebooks beside her. I laid out the story, our marriage, the separation years ago, the recent trip, the proposal, the betrayal. I cried when I told her about the deleted messages, and she handed me tissues without a word. When I finished, she leaned forward. "You've been through a lot, and your desire to understand and process everything is healthy. Tell me, what you want most right now?" My answer tumbled out. "I want to trust him again. I want us to be a team, but I'm terrified I'll be hurt all over again." She nodded. "Fear is expected. Trust isn't binary. It's built moment by moment through consistent actions. You're doing the work." She offered a small smile. "And remember, you're not obligated to stay if rebuilding becomes too painful. Your safety, emotional and otherwise, comes first." I exhaled, a heaviness lifting. I had permission to protect myself. To choose? The bell rang gently, our time was up, and I stood, freshly determined. By Sunday night, I felt oddly hopeful. I cooked dinner, spaghetti with a simple tomato sauce, and David set the table with candles. We laughed over a bottle of wine about a ridiculous workplace mishap I'd had. Afterwards, he cleared the dishes while I washed up, and we shared a hug so natural it almost surprised me. Later, I curled up on the couch with him and said, "Thank you. Not for the fancy dinner, but for showing up. For letting me steer the ship a bit. For seeking help." He kissed my forehead. "Thank you for giving me the chance." I rested my head on his shoulder, listening to his steady breath. Our home no longer felt like a battleground. It felt like the worksite of our marriage in motion. We still had miles to go, therapists to meet, conversations to have, boundaries to define. But that week proved to me that two people, willing to confront their worst impulses and commit to change, could maybe, just maybe, rediscover why they chose each other in the first place. Tomorrow, we'd send the email to schedule our couples session. The week after that, we'd begin therapy together. And while nothing was guaranteed, for the first time since discovering Lena in our lives, I believed we might write a new chapter, one rooted in honesty, respect, and the kind of love that doesn't erase mistakes, but learns from them. Because sometimes, the real test of a marriage isn't whether it survives smooth sailing, it's whether it can weather the storms and emerge stronger, two hearts still beating side by side. I closed my eyes and let that hope settle in, a steady warmth beneath my ribs, carrying me into the night. That Monday morning, I woke up before my alarm, the house unusually quiet. The sun filtered in through the curtains like a promise. I lay there for a moment, listening to my own breathing, and then to David's deep, even snores beside me. It struck me how comforting it felt, this ordinary sound, once taken for granted. I slipped out of bed and dressed quickly, careful not to wake him. In the kitchen, I poured 2 mugs of coffee, then brought one back into the bedroom. I nudged him awake with a gentle, "Hey." His eyes fluttered open, warm with sleep. "Coffee?" I offered. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, and smiled. "You're good to me." We sipped in comfortable silence, the only soundtrack our breathing and the soft morning light. Finally, I set my mug down. I emailed the counselor today. She got back already. Next Wednesday, 6 p.m., for our first joint session. David's shoulders relaxed, relief visible in the slack of his posture. "We're doing this?" "We are," I said, and meant it. That couples therapy session was nothing like I'd feared. The counselor greeted us warmly, and after the usual introductions, had us each describe in our own words why we were there. I spoke of betrayal, of fear, of my hope for rebuilding. He spoke of regret, of longing for the spark we'd lost, and of his commitment to honesty. She guided us through exercises, one where we wrote down our biggest hurt and then read it aloud, and another where we shared one thing we appreciated about the other. When it was David's turn for appreciation, he looked at me and said, "I appreciate your strength, how you fight for us even when it hurts you. I'm sorry for making you do that." My throat tightened. "I appreciate your courage, for admitting you needed help and for telling me the truth, even when it was hard." Tears pricked my eyes, but they were softer now, tears of relief. We left the session holding hands, shaky but united. In the weeks that followed, we stuck to our routines. Friday date nights, sometimes simple board games and popcorn, sometimes a walk through the art museum downtown. We resurrected old rituals. Sunday morning pancakes, Saturday afternoon naps cuddled up with a movie. But more importantly, we added new ones. 10-minute check-ins after work, weekly gratitude emails where we listed 3 things the other did that week that we appreciated. At home, the guest house keys stayed exactly where they'd always been, hanging on a hook by the door to the yard. No one new moved in. Lena's presence dissolved, her emails went unanswered, her number blocked. With every boundary David honored, my trust inched back. One Saturday afternoon, as we painted the guest house door a fresh coat of sunny yellow, just because we talked about the future. Not hypotheticals, but real plans. A road trip next spring up the Pacific Coast Highway, a cooking class with that chef we followed online, even a small garden in the backyard. I caught his eye as he dipped the brush into paint. "You really missed this," I said, smiling. He laughed, blue paint flecking my cheek. "Yeah, me too." I leaned forward and kissed him, tasting paint and hope. "Welcome back," I whispered. Our 6-month check-in with the therapist felt more like a celebration than a struggle. We walked in holding hands, then sat down and recapped our journey. The counselor pointed out how our communication had improved, how we'd rebuilt patterns of honesty, and how we'd learned to ask for, and grant, permission in small things before tackling big ones. She asked if either of us had lingering doubts. I glanced at David, who gave me a reassuring nod, then looked back at the counselor. Sometimes, I admitted, I worry about old patterns reemerging when life gets stressful. He reached across the table and covered my hand. And when I feel that pull, I promise to come to you first. Her eyes softened. That's real partnership. Trust isn't a destination, it's an ongoing choice. You two are choosing it every day. On the drive home, we drove slowly, windows down, the late afternoon light warming us. We sang along to old songs, traffic lights turning green as if cheering us on. I felt a deep contentment settle over me, neither naive nor brittle, but grounded. We'd weathered the storm and found ourselves intact, even stronger. That night, we sat on the back porch with 2 glasses of chilled white wine, watching the stars emerge. Winston, our golden retriever, lay between our feet, snoring softly. I rested my head on David's shoulder. I almost stopped believing we'd get here, I confessed. He wrapped an arm around me. Me too, but I'm glad we didn't give up. I smiled, looking up at the sky. Do you remember our first date? I asked. He chuckled. Of course. I spilled coffee on your blouse and you told me it was fine. And then I gave you my number before I even learned your last name, I added. He laughed, eyes crinkling. I knew right then I wanted a second date. I nudged him. How about a lifetime? He kissed my temple. I'm in. We sat in that perfect hush, the kind that only comes when two people have journeyed through fire and emerged with hands still clasped. I thought back to the morning. I woke with dread in my chest, the same place that now felt warm with possibility. The unexpected upheaval in our marriage had threatened to pull us apart, but instead had become the catalyst for deeper truth and stronger bonds. I glanced at David again. He smiled and squeezed my hand. No words were needed. We both knew that the real story, the one of two people who refused to let go, was far from over. There would be new challenges ahead, career shifts, family losses, perhaps even the question of children someday. But we were ready. Not because we'd fixed everything, but because we'd learned how to face life's curveballs together. In that moment, under the vast, forgiving sky, I felt it. The enduring power of love that chooses every day to rebuild, recommit, and rediscover itself. And I knew, without a doubt, that this was only the beginning of our next chapter, one we would write side by side, one honest word and one courageous step at a time.